So you know me, I run a sweet little company called NTI, and we have the privilege of working with all of you, working with shippers, working with private fleets, and increasingly working with vendors to look at the image that we're all putting out into the universe and saying, does it align with the expectations of outcomes that we have, and does it align with the expectations of drivers and technicians and what their interests are? So we're going to talk a little bit about that today, but not so much my normal story with regard to NTI, so I think you're going to love this. And ultimately, we want you to leave here saying, I love truckers. We're going to talk about that later. But in any role and any responsibility that you have, that you are going to over-deliver on expectations of professional truck drivers. That whatever aspect of the journey of that timeline that Travis introduced this morning and that each of the speakers have gone through, that you are going to view it from a driver's perspective of empathy. That loud and clear, you feel, say, think that in all that you do for your job, in the way that you talk about your job, in the way that you talk about professional truck drivers and the industry and recruiting and retention programs, that you love truckers. That you are teaching and influencing the folks around you that they also love truckers. So when we look at the elements of leadership, one of them is empathy. There's integrity, there's courage, there's vision, there's influence, but the one that really stood out to us as we looked at the message of advocacy and evaluation on a driver's timeline was ultimately empathy. So put yourself in a professional driver's shoes and travel through that journey that Travis opened up to us this morning. So let's look at one example. How do drivers end up skeptical about us, about the industry? Why do they enter and then exit so quickly? What are the reasons for this? I'm going to sum up for you. You don't have to read it. You'll get a copy of this. But ultimately, this woman saw an ad on Facebook, and the owner of the company, supposedly, had his BMW parked next to his beautiful truck and was offering a great pay, good job. She was down to very little money. She spent her last $85 going to show up for orientation. She shows up, and the guy picks her up from the airport in a Subaru. He takes her back to his place. She feels threatened. It's uncomfortable. The equipment's not in good shape. She meets another truck driver on site at the office, and she's told that the job is not what they expect, etc. And ultimately, she's telling a group of many, many thousands of new women in the industry, don't do what I did. Don't just look at the image that you see in the social posts. You have to really look into the rest of the details and ultimately always leave yourself with an out. And I think when it comes to the onboarding and the driver retention, we find that many times drivers are looking to leave themselves an out. And Max was saying earlier that we should maybe not just expect drivers to be with us forever, but enjoy them while we can, enjoy them right now. I think there's an element of truth to that, but we do want to set our teams up in expectation that ultimately, again, we're going to over-deliver on a driver's expectation. So how do we approach that with empathy, and what can you do every day, again, on the journey of a professional truck driver to influence them? So, we've got the aspects of the journey here, what you see, and then underneath what you don't see. We have an aging driver population. You've heard me talk about that for many, many years. It came to a major head in the last couple of years. But ultimately, driver health is not enough of a priority. And we know that we're not seating enough trucks regularly. We see drivers leave. We see them maybe not take enough pride. But there are elements that we don't see underneath. Anybody been to a truck stop lately? I just traveled, and we went into some truck stops. And as I approached the entrance, the garbage was overflowing. The floor was dirty. The bathrooms, the women's bathroom, there were only 2 stalls that were in operation out of 6. They were all out of order. It was offensive on the inside. You show up at a truck stop and you're expecting a parking space, you're expecting a shower, you're expecting clean restrooms, and when you don't have that, drivers make a choice to move on and go on to the next one. And if they don't reach one there, then they end up skipping the shower. This is something I learned during many years working with drivers and having to talk to them about how we present ourselves at the corporate office and being prepared for the job. But sometimes the job really isn't prepared for them. In terms of recruiting people, I see so many ads on social, and what's featured in the ad? The truck. Last year at the summit, there was a CEO panel, and Kevin Birch was on the panel. And of course, he's classic ATA, longtime member, longtime ambassador of ATA, and he always wears his I love trucks or I heart trucks pin, hands them out, keeps an extra stash, is really passionate about it. And Mark Coulson was on the same panel with him, and he said, love the pin, but it shouldn't say I love trucks, it should say I love truckers. So what did we do? We started a movement with Mark Coulson for I love truckers and we love truckers, because everything that we do should absolutely say, I love the folks behind the wheel, not the equipment that they're going to seat. Travis was talking about job ads earlier, and the higher cost, the more narrow the job function. However, keep in mind that the real people you're going to put behind that wheel are evaluating the extent of the opportunity. So what they see in that ad and how you are profiling, how you are amplifying your message is how they evaluate what they think about you, if they want to take the next step with you, if they want to have more conversation. I have a little bit of brain fog. What was her name? Michaela. Michaela was talking about turning drivers into ambassadors, and there was a question, where do we find ambassadors? They already exist in your fleet. There are people who love you, and they're telling you often, it may not be you personally, but you really do have to seek them out and know exactly how they spread the message and really bleed for your company and amplify that chat. And frankly, it doesn't necessarily have to be a truck driver. It can be someone on your team that's really well-versed in social media. But as she said, folks don't only want to hear what you are selling, they want to hear your own people. So that ambassadorship is really key. And then as far as your community goes, all of you know that I served on the board of Women in Trucking for 6 years. During that time, we tripled membership. I chaired the membership committee, so obviously I'm pretty passionate about that. Looking at your own backyard and being an amplifier of the message in trucking is so key to the future of our industry. From a conversion standpoint, celebrating drivers and sharing it, drivers are like oxygen, right? We can't live without them. That was my social post this week, and if you can amplify campaigns and messages that celebrate truck drivers, again, they really know exactly what your message is and what you're trying to share with them. Now, one of the keys here that we're all pretty passionate about, and Travis and I were talking about this last night, is a recruiting position an entry-level job at your company? Has anybody had a job offer in the last couple years? Okay, come on. I mean, I've seen the job changes. There's been a few job changes, right? There's been a few shuffles. Recruiting is now a high demand position. You really have to be a subject matter expert. And so on your team, if that's still an entry level role and we don't have these folks where they know every detail and they can really answer those questions, that's where those gaps come in. And it's gonna take a lot more than just me sharing with drivers that recruiters don't necessarily lie. Sometimes they just give the wrong answer. They're in a hurry to make their numbers. And instead, we need to really make sure they're subject matter experts. So more of what we see and what we don't see. We've got churn. Churn is still a problem. We have early exits. We've got trucks that sit idle. It's probably a little less of a problem right now with some maintenance issues, but you get it. We need to continue to hire and retain drivers and try to avoid some of the churn. A lot of that has to do with those early impressions. And when Becca asked the question earlier, what is the most important department that you rely on in terms of onboarding, I wanted to scream maintenance. And why is that? Because right now we've got a shortage of trucks. We have more interest, there's a lot of churn happening. So certainly this department change can ebb and flow as you have a journey at a trucking company as periods change. But that first impression does bleed out through that initial 30 days, and that's why we continue to see turnover really high in the 30, 60, 90 period. So we have to drown out the noise. You know that in terms of retention. You've heard me say for years, drown out the noise of others around you. And how do you do that? You tell them why they chose you, what they liked about you, what their friends like about you, and why they should stay. But that happens in the commitment phase as well. They're going to be, after they accept a job with you, continue to be recruited. Whether they put in an application, whether it was done recently, depending on recruiting processes with other applications, they are going to continue to hear from folks. So you have to engage with them, not just in that commitment to orientation, but start building that pipeline, building their commitment to you from day one. So we want to enjoy them while they're here. We want to enjoy them during the time, but we should be working towards them wanting to retire from us. Building that pipeline and their commitment to you, it has a lot to do with that impression, with setting up the long-term goals of better health and wellness for drivers. So they talked a lot about quality lodging on the panel earlier with regard to onboarding. But food and drinks and accommodations at the office, these are all still a really big part of an aging driver with health issues and how we can share some more perspective with them. Meeting their expectations, leaving a last impression. I just want to touch on that really quickly, that if a driver fails a drug test, if they don't pass orientation, if your onboarding team asks them about an accident that happened 20 years ago and they give the wrong answer, who's responsible for getting them home? What's the exit strategy when it comes to drivers who leave you? A lot of times it's good luck, see you later. I would encourage you that even when it doesn't work out, we want to leave that lasting impression. In regards to ambassadors and influencers that are in the industry right now, when you do leave a driver out on the corner, that is being shared publicly now, and it's haunting some of our customers. So keep an eye out on those lasting impressions. In regards to the long-term solutions and community, we want to be active in our own backyard. We want to build programs that make drivers want to continue to choose us every day. We want to find solutions for them that allow them to say, I'm really proud of the brand that I have. I'm not just a truck driver, but I'm a professional driver for J&M. I work for Messer. I work for Walmart. I'm a Walmart employee, not just a truck driver. And part of how we do that is, again, being really serious about the things that are very important to them and about being active in the community. But it also is those seeds planted with regard to their long-term commitment to you. If you ask drivers what they're looking for today, and you're looking at those younger drivers, you don't want an average age of 54. I can tell you that someone who is maybe in the case of the Shaver household in their 40s, but in general, probably in their 20s and 30s. They're looking for paid family leave, they're looking for child care benefits, they're looking for greater opportunities to take better care of their family. And they can't do that with unpaid leave situations or a lack of maternity accommodations for women that are driving trucks. Supporting causes that aid truckers is another thing that's really important. It's more than just Women in Trucking. It's more than St. Christopher's Fund. It's more than truckersfinalmile.org. It's more than branding and support with veterans. Looking at causes that directly support professional truck drivers, they don't just see that as the cause. They see it as you supporting them as a whole. So certainly broadcasting your commitments to those folks is also key. So we've got empathy, we've got advocacy for professional truck drivers. Where does that take us in terms of the outcome on their journey? It's a proud driver, proud to be a driver in the industry, proud to work for you at CRST, at Rail, wherever it is in their journey, and mostly proud to stay and end up retiring with you. Connecting with the next generation is still necessary. There's a huge gap in terms of age. On the far right there, that's me 3 days postpartum. Don't look too much. Next to that picture of me is, if you work with Kelly on my team, that's Peyton Krall. She's the next CEO of NTI. We've been grooming her since age 4. Next to there, you've got 3 generations of the Brown family working at Cargo. You've got Girl Scouts getting their Women in Trucking patch and touring a truck. NTI has done those programs, and they are amazing, and they will wear out your horn during the tour. And of course, we've got the Next Generation in Trucking Association. Lindsay's here this week if you want to talk to her about it. But we have to amplify your presence and your message in the schools, in your community. We're not going to continue to have drivers that are like oxygen around us if we're not doing that. And as you can see with the pandemic, the more that we are short drivers, the more we will lean towards innovation and technology and replacing those roles, which means there aren't that many folks to recruit, which might mean another job change for one of us. So looking at that next generation is also really key. I want our company to join and be more active in state associations, national level associations. I'm not in charge of that. What do I do now? So a couple things there. Women in Trucking, we have a very large number of women that join on individual memberships. They get very involved. It's very visible to their company, and the company converts it to a corporate membership. So nothing is stopping you from amplifying your message as an individual working in the industry. And competition is tough for people in general. So if your company isn't supporting your priorities, they're running behind. Yes, the loud and negative news about freight, and we're asked to be doing less with recruiting. Thoughts on that? I think my blog this week is about what's changing in the recruiting and retention market. One of the things you can do is, of course, you're going to get a copy of these slides. You can share them. A lot of folks, when they contact me to do a market overview, they simply want us to share a message that they've been saying many times in terms of driver supply or what's needed to better retain folks, and they just need a microphone available to do that, and they feel like they're on mute. So, can we share that message? So you can do something like that. The other thing is just in preparing use cases, and you do that with supplying data. And we've been talking about showing results. Nick went through several results. You have to be able to provide your own message, again, whether it's your involvement in the community, in the industry, or I think most crucially, with the performance of your department and within the company to be able to make your case.